Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. Scorpio new moon. Are you feeling it? I gotta say, we felt it in this house basically right away. Moon met sun at the 21st degree of tropical Scorpio at 1:27 a.m. Pacific time. Today, Moon Day, the day of the moon, November 13th, 2023. And yeah, I woke up to the sounds of crying child around 3 a.m. And poor guy was just experiencing like deep pain um, in his sides and his stomach. He had a little bit of a fever last night and he's had like big mucus, so he's been fighting something. But yeah, when especially for this guy, when stomach becomes a concern, we become a million times concerned because he was in the hospital some years ago around stomach stuff. And so there is something very relevant in my personal experience at the time, um, and the experience of his mama at the time that feels very aligned with the portal that is this powerful Scorpio new moon of 2023, because part of this is about the power of control, the control of power, the awakening of the authentic human heart and all of its feels. This is always true when Scorpio is in the lens, but with the Scorpio new moon conjunct Mars, and Mars is south node and opposite Uranus, the kind of feeling of and perhaps experience of, it's certainly the fear of sudden changes that would take us into our deepest challenges for the sake of our evolutionary growth can be like right here. I'm looking at some of the names of some of you amazing beings that have joined me live. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the present of your presence. Like, I know some of you have recently gone through some really hard times. I know at least one of you has very much been facing his death in recent years. And I love you, bro. Um, you know what I'm saying? Like, these are the things, like, just say death out loud and see what happens for you, right? Like, that's what happens. That's the calling at Scorpio time in general. Certainly, seasonally, the Northern Hemisphere experience seems to agree, but I will say also I'm looking at the beauty of like color. And whether you're north or south of the equator at this time of the year, that's likely true. Whether it's the leaves turning to fall or the flowers springing from the ground where they were hiding through the cold times, you know? There's like this color in Scorpio time. There's this radiance, there's this aliveness, you know? And sometimes it's when death is really close and the veil is thin that we can stop to smell the roses in a new way and smell like octaves of their fragrance that weren't available before. I'm just reading, I actually had a bike accident today and bruised my ribs. Never had that happen before. Sorry to hear that, Carmen. I hope you're okay. Yeah, I mean, accidents when Uranus is in the space can really come alive. And importantly, conjunctions are conjunctions and they are very real. They're even more real when we're having conjunctions not only in longitude but also in latitude. Everyone, let me, according to my calculations, and I don't mean to take this into pure nerd space. I know I can go there too deeply, but the sun is not only conjunct Mars but also parallel Mars. This means Sun is meeting Mars at his node. They are also contra-parallel Uranus. Like so these this Sun Mars and new moon Mars Uranus thing, it's even stronger than it might otherwise look. We also have Mercury, who has recently moved into Sagittarius, in a really strong parallel with Capricorn Pluto and some other shapes I want to speak about. But mostly, I just want to say, when fear fear of death is in the air, there is a portal open that can take us, when walked courageously, to the death of fear. Um, I'm really appreciative of the power of retrograde sentences like that. And that's one I haven't found my way to recently. I will say I spoke to somebody very near and dear to my heart this weekend about a near death experience. I mean, not like a died in a car accident and saw the light and whatnot, but I mean, like received a phone call while folding children's laundry and were told that they had a tumor and they had to come in immediately. Right. So, and I hadn't heard myself say this before, but interestingly, the fear of death can bring the death of fear. When I was just personally contemplating what for this person or for any person, the potential gift wrapped in that terrible paper of a near death experience. Or let me say it in a different way, because I think near death experience brings much more of that. I'm dying and I hear the angels sing and I'm at the gates or whatever, or I experience the light. So let me just say, like, when people find out that they have like a terminal illness or that their child is facing a potential death, or, so like when the fear of death is amplified, there is a potential for the death of fear. And that's like the coolest thing that I found from this one who's near and dear to my heart. And this time we spent together this weekend, just speaking about this experience that she went through some years ago and is going through, but much less so. Um, because, my general assumption is, okay, like, death comes nearby to remind us how to live so that the flowers are more powerful and all the things that I said before. But what she had shared was what left with her at this time was unnecessary fear, and that was like a way that she had always lived her life. I'm really grateful to have had that conversation this weekend and to be in contemplation of that perspective at this time of the Scorpio new moon. And frankly, it just kind of came out here with you right now. But it's something I think I will say often for the rest of my work as a counseling astrologer, and hopefully as the rest of my days as a friend and father and partner and brother and child and all the things. Is when the fear of death comes calling, a portal opens that can bring us to the death of fear. And we worry about, and let's look at like Sagittarius Mercury in a place where Mercury is said to be in exile, but he's applying to sextile this Libra Venus, right? How can our seeking nature help bring balance and peace and harmony in parallel with Pluto, Mercury, Pluto, and Capricorn? It's like the just power. Okay, so I want to speak in different ways, and so kind of bring us to maybe different levels of fear. I'm also looking in this chart of Mercury, who's square Pisces Saturn. And I should say this, at new moon time, Mercury has squared Pisces Saturn. And so this is what we call a separating aspect. It's already happened, been there, done that. It's in the past, y'all. And that doesn't mean it's not still resonant, right? When I look at natal charts, it's like an aspect that has not yet happened, which in astrology we call an applying aspect, speaks a little bit more to it's in front of you. It is to be. And in the ancient thought, like those applying aspects that haven't happened yet, they're stronger. And it's a silly thing, but when you're going into, the final exam, sorry, I'm just distracted. I want to share this. I'm watching two military helicopters fly above a Chevron refinery right now. So, what did that do to me? And maybe I can circle back to that. Okay. Where were we? Yeah, if something hasn't happened yet, you're going into the final exam, you're feeling all that stress and that pressure, or you're an astrologer, you're looking to, oh my God, what might this Jupiter Saturn conjunction be on December solstice of 2020? Yeah, it's in Aquarius. What's happening? Pluto's going into Aquarius. He's conjoining that point. What is it going to be? It's like, oh, all that stress, right? This applying, it hasn't happened yet. It's aligning. Whereas separating from coming out of that test, whether you think you rocked it or think you failed it, which can open a whole different level of stress. You really don't know until the results come in. But there's a pressure that's relieved. Now, it doesn't mean it's there. It's separating and applying also, like separating since it happened before you. I've always kind of applied more to, well, maybe it has more to do where you're coming from, whether this is ancestry, you know, um, past lives, if you're into that kind of cosmology. Um, you know, something that happened with mom or dad. It's more in the soil from which you are sprouting than the atmosphere that your leaves are branching into. But it's still so much part of you. So there's something anyway, when Mercury first came into Sagittarius just days ago and immediately squared Saturn in Pisces. We're talking about seeking and faith. We're talking about belief systems and, turn on the news. What happens when one race believes they are superior to another, when one religion believes they are the chosen ones and the others are not, when one religion thinks that they must convert the heathens, and if the heathens won't convert to be saved, then they should be killed. You know what I'm saying? Like, it gets us into a lot of fucking trouble. Never with awareness, right? Because when we're in the belief, we can't see that we are. This is, by the way, I'll just share this thing. Like, a dear friend of mine, a mentor of mine, a kind of older brother of mine, and in astrology, asked me at one point years ago, he's like, hey, dude, he's like, I'm seeing you on Facebook, like entertaining and spending time with all these like flat earth people. He's like, what are you doing? And he pointed out that at the time in my life, I'll just share it because this is a statement of wisdom. This is my friend Gary Caton. And he's like, dude, he's like, check it out, man. You're in your Uranus opposition. He's like, this is the time in your life when you move from I'm going to do all these things to, oh shit, I don't have enough time to do all the things I thought I was going to do. And so you might want to choose wisely. Now, why I still believe at that time I was choosing wisely when engaging in conversation with people who believed that the world is flat, which, if you haven't seen it, is this whole YouTube phenomenon. Go check it out. They make some really good points. Um, I will say that through my own personal experience of like being a star student and traveling around the earth and witnessing how the sky changes from one place to another, I'm very much satisfied in myself, the kind of global earth worldview. But so one of the reasons why it was actually healthy for me at the time to be entertaining this, there's two. One is usually I'm the like conspiracy theorist in the room, and so I wanted to hold space for and try to understand people who were, in my point of view, in that framework, and I was on the kind of sober, sensible side, which, I think I'm often around people who are judging me from my ridiculous beliefs from a more, at least in their point of view, grounded place, right? So I was like excited to be able to have, and it wasn't my first time, but to be able to have the experience from the other side of that thing, right? It actually led me to birthing this thing in Seattle where I lived at the time called Conspiracy Dearest, where you could come and bring your whatever you're freaked out about. Bring it in here, and it's a safe space to share your tale, and nobody's going to tell you you're wrong. Nobody's going to judge you for it, or we're going to try not to, or like the rules or the framework of the space is that we're not supposed to. When I did that, people would write, it was like, oh, I should come in and talk to you guys because I used to think that and I was healed from it. It's like, we do not want you here. This is a place where people can have their weird things, their fears, whatever. And you're welcome. That was the idea of Conspiracy Dearest. Anyway, so it was helpful for me, I know, in that way. The other thing was this, and it's why I'm sharing this right now in regards to this Sagittarius Mercury square Pisces Saturn aspect or figure in the Scorpio new moon chart here of November 13th, 2023, that triskaidekaphobia, the fear of the 13. Such a lunar number. Moon moves 13 degrees per day, 13 and a third. Anyway, um, the where it was most helpful for me at that time to engage with people of this kind of flat earth worldview is, and to like sit with like this like immediate response I had to you're idiots, you're wrong, or whatever, to be like, dude, chill out and try to open your mind and like honor that somebody has a different worldview than you. Like, where it was really helpful for me is I was like, oh, holy shit, like I have a religion. Because like I think the interesting thing that those people are bringing up is like how much of your cosmology in regards to like around Earth's, okay, I'm spitting the armillary sphere for you as I do, comes from just the training that you've had since you were a little kid, where there were globes in the classroom and all these pictures from, the government organizations like NASA. Even though, like, you've never seen these things with your eyes, like, you haven't learned this through experience, you've just taken this on as a belief because they told you it's what it is. And so, what I really appreciated about that challenge is, okay, like, what do I actually know from my experience versus what do I believe because it's what I was told is true? And so what I realized is like, holy shit, like I actually have a religion. Like I'm of the ball earth religion. And oh my God, like I'm a priest of this religion because I teach astronomy and I teach round earth astronomy, by the way, because that's what's going on. And again, like, so what was cool here is I was like, all right, yeah, I've been high in airplanes. I've never seen the curvature of Earth. If I had need to just kind of throw out all the pictures I've seen from space and believe that was some kind of like government plot to keep me from the reality of a flat earth, that's okay. I can entertain that. That's fine. What have I actually seen with my own eyes and smelled with my nose that tells me that the earth is not flat? And by the way, for me, the greatest answer there is like, if the world has two celestial poles, the thing that is most simple is a model of a ball earth that has two terrestrial poles. And I've seen it with my own eyeballs because I've like engaged with the sky in Peru and Australia and other places. And this isn't meant to be a flat earth thing. I had no intention of going here, by the way. And here we are. All right. And so the only reason why I mention this at all is because Sagittarius, Mercury, square, Pisces, Saturn. And by the way, if you want to look at religious, rigid, racial, rigid, whatever belief systems and the tension, the square that they can cause in the world, turn on your TV. And if you really want to honor Mercury here, turn on the other people's TV too. Change the channel. Seek other information. Find the information that most triggers you and see if you can learn to listen to it not from that place of emotional response. Without, I'm not saying say no to your emotional response. I'm like, have it, but also watch yourself having it as you're watching the thing, and then look at your thing and compare the two and be okay with it. Now, this is also not a Gemini lunation or something, okay? But a very strong figure in this lunation is Venus in Libra. We want harmony. We want balance. We want equality. All right, well, try to see the world through the other's eyes. What do you look like through theirs? Can you walk a mile in their shoes? Can you not use that cliche with the word moccasins because it might be fucking racist and inconsiderate? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, how can we learn to Libra? And intriguingly, in this chart where we say Mars, in the tradition anyway, particularly strong in the sign of Scorpio, at home, also this is true for Venus in the sign of Libra. These are signs traditionally that don't see eye to eye. They are inconjunct. But neighboring signs from the plate or the whole sign point of view, 30 degrees apart. Well, Venus at 5.5 Libra, and the new moon at 20, almost 21 Scorpio, Mars close by at 22.11 Scorpio. Like, these aren't semi-sextiles, these aren't 30 degrees, these are semi-squares. These are 45 degrees. It's like a square. There is conflict. Why? Just to have conflict? No. I mean, perhaps what do I know? What I believe, what I have faith in, is the conflict arises for the opportunity for greater resolution. That I'm not dealing with flat earth people in my feed just because it's good for me to be triggered. And by the way, like, if I can be and not completely lose it or fall into, a trauma place or whatever and try to be aware and like, I can learn a lot about me, right? That's why. So it's not to just be triggered, it's what do I do when I am? Right? And I'm not some enlightened being that always does this, right? Like, if you want, I can get my partner here on the screen to tell you some tales about when I don't do this right at all, But, should conflict arise, let us at least attempt to, while staying authentic to the powers of the heart in that moment, also try to have a view of the thing from the air above the tides. Now, that's a lot easier to see for me to say when my experience of military helicopter is them flying over there somewhere above, interestingly, from this parallax, a refinery and the peak of a sacred mountain, Mount Tamalpais, which is always an interesting juxtaposition for my Gemini moniker to deal with, But if I was living in a place where those military helicopters are coming by and shooting bullets at me, it's a very different story, isn't it? Right? So, and one thing I've really been trying to deeply practice, and you know what? I haven't been trying. One thing I've been very deeply practicing, not even like consciously practicing recently, is just deep gratitude for my safety. I lived in Seattle for a long time, and a lot of the students there, I'm very much a sky guy, and so we were talking about a thing in their chart, and it's also happening in the sky right now. It's like, hey, go before sunrise, like go like 4 a.m. and go to this park. It's a great place with an eastern view. Wear some coats. It's cold. So I'm like, be safe. And they come back the next day like, dude, Brett, you can't send a woman out to that fucking park alone, dude. Are you crazy? And I'm like, oh no, I'm not crazy. I'm ignorant. Like I'm not even actually considering what it would be like to be out there as a woman at 4 a.m. Right? Like I'm just stupid. Like I'm not crazy. So now I know, and I really appreciate that. Um, and so it's like I'm going out at 4 in the morning. Like yesterday, the guy woke up and I really wanted his mom to be able to sleep. So I'm like, hey, dude, want to go look at planets? And he's like, yeah. It's like 4 in the morning. It's like, gear up, bro. And he put on the fluffy dinosaur suit. And if I wasn't gonna wake his mom up by going in to get my fluffy gorilla suit, I would have. Anyway, I took him to one of my morning sky spaces. And we climbed up there and we gazed at Venus and Jupiter and Orion. I showed him the stars where the sun and Mercury and Mars were when he was born, and where Venus and Jupiter were. And he's not like super interested in that information. He's 8 years old. But I was just like, plant those seeds, and if he wants to ask more, we'll go there. And sometime later on, maybe he's outside with his friend, like that's where Venus was when I was born. And I'm like, that's a win, whatever. But we were just with the magic of the sky, and it was dark, and we brought the dog, and then the coyotes started going. A lot of them, like it was probably coyotes like in the midst of a kill. Um, and and we got scared. I got scared for him. He got scared for the dog. Which is us trying to deflect our fear for us, right? And we heard a dog barking nearby. It was like protecting or scared or something. Like, and we were just like in that moment. So we left. We left before sunrise and we came home, and I really wanted her to sleep. She hasn't been getting enough sleep. Momming ain't easy, huh? Some of y'all know all about that. Um, anyway, so we played, he's like, can we watch something? I'm like, no, dude. We played this mystery game. We played like escape the room board game. It was awesome. He was really good at it, and it was fun. And it felt also Scorpio, on that kind of detective side of Scorpio. So there are things in this chart where there's meant to be some tension in between imbalance and balance, right? Or let me say balance and imbalance. Look, where tropical Scorpio resides in our day and age, it is constellationally the scales. Now, the scales traditionally, they're like the newest constellation of the zodiac, right? This is a time when the equinox sun, or the equinox point, the intersection of equator and ecliptic that spends 12 hours above and 12 hours below the ground every day forever. Back then, the equinox point was in this zone of the zodiac that was therefore revisioned as the scales. Before then, they were called the claws. It's the claws of the scorpion. And there are some old images, and this is how those of you in my school, in the School of Earth Astrology, have seen it drawn thanks to Maria recreating the constellations imagery, right? We show the scorpion holding the scales. And one's all like twisted around the claw, like not holding them gently. And I think there's an importance in that imagery. A way that I often like to speak of this kind of transition from Libra to Scorpio is we have these scales of peace and harmony and balance, and what happens if we drop a cannonball in one of them? But then when it comes out, the scales just rock up and down. And, now we're feeling that tidal force of the highs and the lows, of the pleasures and the pains, of the life and the death. And when we come back into balance, right? We've found balance through experience, right? Not the thought of balance, not the false balance that we often try to create by suppressing our own needs just to keep the peace, of like censoring our own voice. This is a very powerful throat chakra time for reasons I don't have time to transmit, but rewind through my recent sharings and you shall see. Right? Censoring my own voice because I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to say the wrong thing. What do I say privately versus publicly? You know, those kinds of themes. And there's meant to be tensions here, and there's meant to be shock here. And I will say, like, with courage and light in your heart, I encourage you to look, even if you're far away, like I am blessed to be, into the horrors of war and such, through these conflicts of thought and belief, considering from your heart's wisdom rather than your mind's wisdom, what is believing versus seeking, what is faith. These are all alive. And now in this Scorpio new moon chart, Mercury is square Saturn, but he's departing from that square and he's throwing a ray to Venus in Libra. And it says, if you're willing to expand your mind, if you're willing to go have a look, Mercury, by the way, who's just becoming visible this week, he's just finishing his journey from behind the sun. He's explored the hidden places in Scorpio and he's coming back up. And he's probably going to tell us some weird shit. It's like you're probably going to have some strange revelations if you will allow yourself to have them. And if you will allow yourself to break free, and it's very difficult, from your religion, because just as that story as I was kind of trying to share before, the religions that we have are the religions we are unaware of. It's like, you know, Jung said something about the shadow. It's not the things you know you need to work on. It's the things you don't know you need to work on. Like, you know, it's that, right? And our religiosity, our belief systems, it's not these things that we know that were kind of chiseled into our own personal tablet by our parents and our, you know, programming, or sorry, education and whatnot. It's like the things that we don't know, but our experiences in our life, should we allow ourselves to keep our eyes open, especially the eyes of the heart open, says the Scorpio new moon, the things that we shy away from as soon as fear comes up, right? Like those things will tell us how we are programmed, configured, what rules we're living by, and give us the opportunity to kind of break through them, or shake, wiggle through them, or dance with them to the other side of the ballroom, whatever, you know, to not run away from the gigantic tidal wave that's coming. Maybe not even sit on the beach in lotus with a soft smile, right? But maybe run straight towards it so we can dive in and find the tranquil waters on the other side. There's strong Taurus now. There's also a very interesting truth of Venus at the midpoint of Saturn and Jupiter. She is in a biquintile with each of them. And generally speaking, though not in this moment, they're more in the 21st aspect currently, but Jupiter and Saturn are in a quintile phase of their dance, art, beauty, finding your way through this muck by working artistically in any way that comes through you, comes to you. My feeling is this is an opportunity to find grace, and perhaps it is when the power of fear comes around, when the fear of death comes knocking on our door. Perhaps it is a door that leads us through a dark hallway to the other side in the lightness of releasing false fears. When the fear of death arrives, perhaps we will be led to the death of fear. Happy new moon! I hope that lands for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the present of your presence. I gotta go, by the way, and I'm not even sure if the microphones are working on Instagram because that alarm just sounded so alarming, but it means I have a reading to do in a few minutes. So I might just be like on the Instagram now, I'm not sure. But yeah, if that landed for you, you know, if you like the video, like the video. Seems logical. Doesn't mean we can't use logic in Scorpio new moon time. If you feel some inspiration from this thing and you know others would be inspired too, share this thing around. I would sure appreciate it. It would really help my work. I left a so-called real job to pursue my path, my purpose, so I can make a loving, not just a living. But it's harder to make a living. So now I'm giving my devotion to making a living. If you really want to help out, you'll find a donate button at geminibrett.com, where you will also find a sessions tab that will help you book a reading with me. I'd sure appreciate it. Sign up for the mailing list and those kinds of things. Any comment you can leave here, many of you have, and I'm very appreciative of it. Thank you. That keeps me going. That really inspires me to share more. And again, the greatest present you could possibly give is the present of your presence, of feeling you. I appreciate being felt. I appreciate being held, as I am so often by a community of amazing magicians like yourself. So thank you for your support in so many ways. I want to read one last thing here. Oh, look at this. We appreciate it. Thank you, Gratitude Galaxy. So I didn't quite finish that thing. One thing that I experienced, practice, I guess, that I'm really unwrapping at this time in my life, and I think it's a great one for us to be, if you are in a place of safety, to just really experience that gratitude, that deep love for that safety, that opportunity to be held in grace. Send that out, beam that out. In other experiences where others feel very unsafe. So sensuality, sexuality is one that I'm speaking of. Like if you are safe in that place, be in that place and beam that safety, that trust, that love out. Fix sign, Scorpio, fix yourself to fix the world. All right. So I just wanted, there's another thing I just read here. New moon is direct hit to my Scorpio sun. Happy birthday. And Mars and Uranus are transit your sun. I would encourage you to avoid that language of hit that astrology encourages. How about this new moon is blessing your Scorpio sun, is visiting your fuel on your birthday, is activating a power in you. So finally, one thing, the difference between surrendering versus allowing. The initiations are helping us release container that would keep us from expressing our power in the world. And I'm so excited to hear more of yours and to see it. Art. And the art of the chart starts in the heart. So let us Scorpio gladly. See you in space, y'all. Buttons.